Good evening and welcome to another episode of A Real Point of View. My name is Greg Morgan. I am your host for this evening, and I am a internet film critic, and I am joined by my one of my cohorts, Mr. Stephen C. And he is also an internet film critic, and he is the critic that doesn't pick a bad movie. Um, One of our normal critics that's usually on the show with us today, on the show with us typically, Miss Karen D, the movie maven, and we're also missing our good friend, Mr. Larry Demkowski, the must see movie critic. They are not with us because of other things that they needed to take care of, but um, good word out to them. Hope they're having a good day and getting done what they need to get done and can at some point in time in the near future get back with us and hang out some more. So today, Steve and I are going to talk about something that is a passion for a lot of people out there in America, all over the country, and even internationally and abroad. Um, Something that most people, fortunately, have the ability to do these days. And what is that, Steve?
Wait, say that one more time.
Sorry, I wasn't
I
trying to catch you off
apologize.
guard. Oh, no worries. Um, Americans pastime. People think it's football. Some people think it's baseball. Some people think it's hockey. But what is it really? What is it that the crowd can get into that they can all do if they do some special things, but they can all have the opportunity to do? And that's what?
Drive fast cars.
Drive fast cars. That's right. Yes, yes. We all have the ability to do that. Now, the police curtail some of that ability, but when when they're not watching, and we got somewhere to be, and if we're trying to travel from state to state, we're trying to get there pretty quickly so that we can take advantage and have fun doing the things we want to do in this small amount of time that we have to do them. Am I right?
Right.
So hopefully people are being safe in doing so, but at the same time, the car doesn't have a speedometer that only goes up to 30. So with that being the case, we got to take care of the car, get it going. It kind of gets the car, acclimated to the mindset of the person driving it. Well, today we're letting the cars drive us. So today it's cars at the movies, where we're going to talk about different movies that we like, but also ones that involve cars. Now, a car may be the main character of the movie that we're talking about. Cars may be as they say in Hollywood, the Academy Awards biz, it may be a not the leading role, but the supporting role as a supporting cast member in the film, or it may just be something that um, people are trying to be flashy in the film. The cars have in film so many different purposes, ambiance, as a weapon, um, as a emitter of wealth or riches. It may be the prized possession. Um, it may be just a means to an end on a long journey, or it may be the thing that keeps somebody alive if we can chase down this criminal, or if we're the criminal and we can chase down this good guy, it keeps us from going to jail. I mean, there's so many ways that a car can be utilized in a film. In many cases, it's just the discarded cars at a junkyard, but the junkyard is a big deal because of all these cars. And sometimes the car, as we said, it could be the murderer, the main thing, like in the movie, um, Stephen
Carrie.
King movie, Stephen King movie, Carrie, and also, and what was the name of the one that was the limousine movie?
I don't know that one.
Yeah, Stephen King movie. It was called. Oh, was it the name of the car? See, that's bad. We should know this, Steve. We both should know this. That's my bad too.
It's a limousine. We're talking about fast cars.
Yeah, but this was a car. It was fast enough to kill, and that's the
Oh
deal.
yeah, that's true.
What is that Stephen King movie? I'm gonna look it up, ladies and gentlemen. Stephen King. Car. Just Christine.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the car had its own personality, and it used the human as its prop, yeah, as its puppet to dish out diabolical things because Christine was alive. So, in today's episode here today, we're going to talk about cars in different facets. Now, I'm not sure what Steve's going to tell you about cars, and Steve's not sure what I'm going to tell you about cars and how they affected the films that we chose. But let's get into the crux of this. Okay, so obviously cars are a big deal. You and I live in Indiana where cars are humongous. It's a big deal. We've got the 500 Speedway here. We have a lot of car races over time every year. And in fact, they're getting ready for another big car race, and they're doing their preliminaries. I learned some things about that. So, what is it about cars, Steve, that really gets people going? I mean, is it because it gives us the ability to be apart? What is it about cars
Um,
that's the big deal? What is the big deal?
well, you see, the way it used to be, and from an older generation from what it is now, which is where we all got our real interest and our real drive for cars, is we didn't have a lot of inside time. We didn't have a lot of easy communication. We didn't have a lot of things like that. So your car was how you got to and from to everywhere you go. Your car was part of you. Your car was, in essence, an extension of who you were, in the kind of car you drove, in the care that you took of your car, and because you did everything in that car. Back in the 50s and 60s, they talk about going cruising, where they may only drive, a mile and a half through town at most, but they might pass the same shop, the same people 6 or 7 times through the night as they're driving and making rounds and talking to people and showing off their cars, because that was something they really had to hold on to. And that's you getting to and fro, and not everybody had a car. So when I was growing up, not everybody had a car yet. Like, it wasn't just, hand me down. So you kind of got clunkers to start off with, and then you upgraded, and then you had to show off your brand new vehicle, your Z28 Camaro, your Mustangs, your old school T buckets that have been a family heirloom handed down. You just got your new heavy duty pickup truck, as we like to say in Tennessee. And you got to show it off. And it was part of your life. It was part of your extension. You took care of it. You took great care and cleaning, and it was your baby. You were taking care of your baby.
So
and
what you're saying is a lot of relationships were parted because of vehicles.
A lot of relationships were, but you got to understand that's a lot of also where people started relationships. You got to take your date to the drive-in. You go cruising up to the Lookout Mountain, and you're hanging out there with your date. A lot of first kisses. I mean, let's be honest. There was a lot of babies made in the back of cars back in the
Amen.
'60s and '70s.
And that's a good point, Steve.
And cars don't mean as much as they used to, but they still have that solid nostalgia factor of guys that we watched in movies and TV shows driving these beautiful, sleek looking vehicles that have been all souped up, and they throw big words around like horsepower and torque, and they just roll off the tongue, and they sound good. And then it's just the cars themselves are some of these cars are works of art, and some of the cars we're going to talk about in these movies, that's kind of how they were treated. Is they were works of art to show off
Hmm.
and to be seen in, and for companies to show off how much better they were and how good you would look in these cars.
Sure, definitely a pinnacle when it comes to showing off your wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the type of car that you drive gave people an understanding as to the what they would think is the caliber of person driving that car,
Mm-hmm.
or the class of that person driving that car. And what I mean by class is not class as in very cool, but class as in a stepping class, as in lower class, middle, upper middle, and upper class. The type of vehicle you drove that you could afford to drive sometimes let people know where you were in that caste system of wealth. And then there's other issues. Driving the fast car and having the cool car sometimes denoted that, hey, in the neighborhood, this is a guy to be respected in the neighborhood. Now
Mm-hmm.
he may not be in a different caste system that you are, but yet in your neighborhood, he was your neighborhood wealthy guy. And sometimes meant that he was had a great job. Sometimes it meant he had a job that paid him great, but it wasn't a good job. If you get the meaning, right? So
Yeah, we
you
go. We gonna
know,
talk a little bit about that.
yes, sir. And then that's another thing about the cars. But then another car situation is, a family that was able to afford a car. The dad especially early on, the dad did everything he could to keep that car up. Learned how
Mm-hmm.
to be his own mechanic because he couldn't afford to actually hire one. So here he is making sure and maintaining his car, doing all kind of maintenance efforts to keep that car full so that the family could utilize that car. And in many cases, most families were a one car family. Now, obviously, over time, that has changed. Many families are a two family car family anymore. But at the same time, that doesn't mean there aren't people struggling just to have a car. And majority of people still use public transportation. And so, as you alluded to, Steve, not everyone still owns a car to this day. And cars have been in existence since the turn of the century. So, and that's the 20th century, which would have been the
Mm-hmm.
early 1900s. Uh, Cars have been available for the consumer, but over time, it took a long time before there were a lot of cars on the road because again, it was for people of privilege, monetary privilege.
Mm-hmm.
And so enough about the history of caste systems and all that kind of stuff. Let's get to the nitty gritty of what we're talking about. So I looked at some films, and I know we talked about some films earlier, and I kind of changed the way I looked at the films. And so I'm looking at the films toward a um, in my situation, in my thought was more of a police action or a
Mm.
crime and police action with it comes to the car movies that I chose. Now, are they specifically car movies? Well, yeah, I guess they are, but not. Well, let me rephrase that. They're not specifically car movies, but cars play a major role in the film as a supporting character in the film, in the films that I picked. But they're kind of cool cars, some of them too. So, um, not getting away from the true essence in my mind of what film is about the experience and the communication of of people throughout the film. That happens here, but it happens because cars are involved. So, um, the car movies that I chose to talk about today, ladies and gentlemen, are a movie that came out in 1968, which is starring Steve McQueen, Bullet. Um, and it's considered to have one of the most highly taunted chase scenes in film. Another movie I picked was a movie called Faster, not Fast and the Furious, like most people would think I would be talking about, which has what they're on chapter 26 right now. Kidding.
I think nine.
Okay, yeah, I was just kidding about that part.
Hey, it
Uh,
still sounds ridiculous when you say nine.
I know, but see, the irony is, and the way that they've con- continued with some of the cast and have mixed up the cast a little bit, it actually has made the film that I guess I can call it a cult film now because it's over 5 episodes, five
Mm-hmm.
um, series or sequences or however you want to call it, sequels. There we go. Um, but yeah, even that in itself is becoming a cult dynasty right now. Well, the movie I'm talking about is called Faster, and it too, because I have to say that now, it too has one of the Fast and Furious actors in it, and that's Dwayne Johnson, or The Rock, as we are more affectionately know him as. And he's in this movie Faster. And then the last movie that I wanted to kind of touch on, which came out 2010, I believe. And then the last movie I want to touch on came out in the early 70s, 1971, and that's The French Connection, uh, with a great, great actor, Larry, that uh, he's just in a multitude of genres and that he's able to act in and be very proficient, and that's Gene Hackman. So the movie that I'm referring to is The French Connection. So what films were you thinking to focus on, Steve? And we can also mention a few other films that are kind of cool when it comes to cars and speed.
Starting from the oldest to the newest, I was going to talk about a movie that I actually saw here recently. Didn't know anything about it, and it was brought to my attention by my dad, who's a drag racer, has been working on cars all his life, and it has been around this theme forever, as we would say. But it's a 1974 movie that's literally based around an entire car chase, and the movie's called Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, and it's starring Peter Fonda being the biggest name attached to it. The next movie is one that if you're a car lover, you've seen it, you've watched it, you sit down every time it's on TV and you watch it again, and it's a 1977 movie called Smokey and the Bandit, starring Burt Reynolds, Jerry Reed, Jackie Gleason, and Sally Field, among other names. And then the last one I'm going to talk about came out in 2014. And it got a lot of critic negative acclaim, but audiences received it very well. And I thought it was a very well done movie. It's Need for Speed. It
Hmm.
came out in 2014, starring Michael Keaton and Aaron Paul. Of course, Aaron Paul of Breaking Bad fame, and this was kind of his first like breakout role.
Sweet. Now, most people have seen a more recent film, which I guess in my mind kind of hit me back into how truly important cars are in a film, and how it helps the movie, get through its journey.
Mm-hmm.
And that movie was Baby Driver.
Mm-hmm.
Watching Baby Driver, which is a real popular movie that came out in 2017, and this was a lot of fun. It reminded me that driving can actually be leisurely, even though that leisurely driving is being done while crime is taking place. But hey, whatever floats your boat. Not necessarily my venue, but hey, it was great to watch, and it was a lot of fun to watch. And it also was a wonderful thing. What was interesting in this movie was it wasn't so much that the vehicle was attached to crime, as much as it was the vehicle was attached to really really good music. This driving was done with the one of the major soundtracks of 2017 for a film. So it was the car and it was the music that played such a big role in that film, aside from the crime and all the other stuff that was in it. But it was the music and the driving and the vehicle, and it didn't matter what vehicle you're in. If you're a skilled driver, it doesn't matter. You can find your rhythm anywhere. So that's what that movie kind of shows us. So we can get into the next phase of movies. Did you have a comment, Steve, before we get started?
Yeah, I wanted to go back and talk about a movie real quick that when I was talking about cruising and everybody being cool and showing off your car and going through the town, and a real throwback to original style street racing and what it was. The movie's a 1973 movie, co-written and directed by George Lucas, and this was his first real true toe dip into the movie scene, and of course, we know he just kind of exploded from there.
Right.
It's called American Graffiti.
Yep. I was thinking the
It,
same thing.
yep. Uh,
That's funny.
Suzanne Summers, Wolfman Jack, Richard Dreyfuss, Ron Howard, the first appearance of Harrison Ford. And it's a real true throwback. It's set in 1962 in the California cruising and scene. After the baby boomer generation of World War II is finally starting to come of age, and it's the soundtrack is good, the film is good, and it really gives you an inside peek into what the life and the style was back in the day, and it's a real good uh, old school look if you're a car fan.
Most definitely. One of my favorite movies. And this is where we get to see Ron Howard too,
Hmm.
before Happy Days, and in his quote unquote 50s, 60s kind of look. So yeah, this is it's just funny cruising around in your vehicle, have being seen. That's what part of that was, being seen. But you didn't just want to be seen in any old car. You wanted to be seen in a souped up car. One of the
Hmm.
the big deals anymore are low riders that you can crank up and down and move side to side with all these contraptions. Over time, how the evolution of cruising has become. So yeah, it's an interesting thing how cars have become so important in our everyday lives, but also the lives of kids and teenagers trying to um, be noticed. That's really a lot of what it was, trying to be noticed, but being noticed for something that was cool, that would be lasting. And, someone sees that car, they know it's you coming down the street. You know, that's a big deal, and has been a big deal for decades. So let's take a delve into the movies that we talked about earlier that we wanted to kind of stress and get people to notice, as opposed to being noticed as a kid, being noticing to notice these movies as being viable films out there, especially the ones that are older that maybe you have missed, depending on the type of films that you watch, and also just like anything else, there's so many films and there's so little time,
Hmm.
because of our busy lives to see them all. We'd like to reintroduce to you these films, these six films, and give your impression of them, and not try to be too wordy about it, but give your impression of the films. So the first film I want to talk about, um, if you don't mind me taking the lead, Steve,
Oh, go for it.
um, is Bullet. This is a movie that stars Steve McQueen, and this is a movie that was based off of a novel. But this movie came out in 1968, and the essence of the film is Steve McQueen is a lieutenant in the police department in San Francisco, and he is tasked to get a crew together to protect a witness who's going to be a witness against the mob. Now, the mob that in question is basically a Chicago mob that this particular informant has escaped from and is now willing to testify against, but not just in any courtroom, but for a U.S. senator and his campaign on crime. And by giving his testimony in this situation, he can help bring down the overall crime situation, not just the ones in Chicago, but help them to get an understanding about different crime factions all over the country, because of the connections that this particular informant seems to have. So the Robert Vaughn plays the senator who is trying to um, get his agenda established and taken care of through the testimony of this particular person who happens to be the brother of a major syndicate leader out of Chicago. So Steve McQueen's task, as I alluded to, is to protect this guy. Well, just like anything else, you can't have a movie unless something goes wrong. So something actually goes wrong. And even though Steve McQueen has things under in his hands and he has things figured out, the essence is they take this guy to a safe house, and obviously, just like the word says, safe house is not always safe, and so things tear apart in this film. So one of the things that happens in the film is, since the mafia is involved, Steve McQueen, um, is his head is on a swivel too, because now if you're going to get to the guy that you're trying to get to and he's being protected, you got to get to the people protecting him, get them out of the way so you can easily get to the guy that you need to get to. And Air 2 comes through the essence of where Cars really makes a big impact in this movie Bullet. um, so basically, the main characters now go from not just the actors, but now it goes into the cars and the streets. Okay, this is going to sound cliche. The streets of San Francisco. I know that's a TV series, but hey, it was in this movie before it was a TV series. So the streets in San Francisco, from watching it on television, even Rice Aroni commercials, that this is a very steep drops and levels, and then drops again, and levels and drops again, and then these ridiculous climbs. Well, this takes place in San Francisco in an area called Russian Hill. So already you hear the word hill, which means that you got to go up the hill or down the hill in order to get around in this town. And so initially, we have some hitmen that are after Steve McQueen's character in this film, Lieutenant Frank Bullitt. And the cars that are involved are wonderful cars, guys. Uh, Steve McQueen is driving a 1968 Ford Mustang GT. And the vehicle that's chasing him right now in the film is a 1968 Dodge Charger RT. So here it is. This Dodge Charger is chasing down Steve McQueen. Well, Steve McQueen, being an expert driver in this film, obviously much better than the people who are trying to assail him, uh, he flips the script, and so the hunter becomes the hunted becomes the hunter, and so Air Two starts this up and down, back and forth, wide turns, short turns, this wonderful car chase scene um, through Russian Hill in San Francisco. And you're watching cars being destroyed. Now, I don't know how many cars were actually destroyed in the making of this film, but there had to be quite a few with all the bumps and jumps and screeches and turns and crashes and um, but this is what this movie is made of. It's not just a bunch of shooting. It's people getting shot and killed. It's this car scene, this chase scene, and this is ridiculous. And watching these different, near misses, and when the cars are coming down here, it's like they're in flight. These arcs, and then it's bam, 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 bam. Okay, obviously I'm not as good as the movie, ladies and gentlemen. You're, you're, you're gonna have to see the movie. I mean, come on, we're gonna be talking about it, right? Like you've got to experience the movie. But the one cool thing about this movie is it's a great experience. First of all, Steve McQueen is a stellar actor, and there's some really good actings in this movie. Um, Angela Bassett is in this film, plays Steve McQueen's love interest, and tries to keep him grounded in a situation where he just can't be grounded. And then you've got Robert Vaughn always down Bullet's throat, trying to, on his neck about trying to get things done and doing it his way and the right way. And Steve McQueen's trying to say, your way is not just the right way. The right way is the right way. And I'm doing the right way. And so you need to leave me alone. It's kind of like that. It's kind of a bully movie as a car movie. But the chase scene in this movie is really stellar. So you got to see this film. So I'm not going to try to give you too much about the film, other than the fact that um, things are not always what they seem.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the people who are after you are not always who you think they are, and the situation is as complicated as any situation could be, and yet at the same time, really cool cars, really fast pace, really great action. You got to see this movie, Bullet, 1980, 1968 film, Bullet. And it is a wonderful film. And it is in color, it's in Technicolor. So if you're not a person that is big on color or not in film, not going to bother you. And if you are a person who's not really into black and white, don't worry. It's not so old that it doesn't have color.
Mm-hmm.
1968. It's a good film. It's a great film. Stephen King was a great actor, and sad he didn't stay with us long enough to show us even more acting prowess. But in this film, it's all in there. He's as cool can be, and he drives a really cool Mustang.
Mm-hmm.
So, got to watch this film. So that's my first film.
Uh,
Steve, what do you got going?
I want to make one little mention about this movie because this movie's so awesome that when people are watching the chase scene, they need to know that these cars, the suspension and the braking were modified to fit what they were going to be doing in the movie. The engines, the motors themselves were never touched. They were never souped up. They were never had anything done to them. The director had actually called for max speeds of about 75 to 80 miles per hour, but sometimes when you're watching these scenes, these cars are going 110 miles per hour through these streets, making all these turns, jumps, and stunts that they're trying to pull. And the Steve McQueen himself, he doesn't need a stuntman. He doesn't want a stuntman. He doesn't use stuntmen. Everything you see Steve McQueen doing in every single movie he's ever been in is exactly what he wanted to do because he was doing it, and that really epitomized respect and coolness of how good this guy was as an actor. So I
Now,
just wanted to say that piece.
and I'm going to add even one other thing to this, which may or may not matter, but who was Steve McQueen an acolyte for?
Oh,
Or I
I
should
don't
say an
remember.
acolyte of?
Yeah, I don't remember.
It's okay. You brought out some really good things that I didn't get, wasn't able to bring out, and I appreciate that. Well, here's that my little, not even 2 cents, 1 cent, one little
Half a cent.
piece, a quarter of a cent. Bruce Lee.
Oh, I did not know that.
Steve McQueen took martial arts and his meditation from Bruce Lee. Cool
That's
beans,
amazing.
cool stuff.
Ladies and gentlemen, this guy is the epitome of cool.
It is. It just adds to his coolness, I think. But anyway, I'm a biased fan of Bruce Lee, but there were a lot of actors and actresses in Hollywood that were students of Bruce Lee, and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
things that he taught them helped them in how they conducted themselves in film. It's amazing. All righty, so all right, Steve, you're up. What's another one of your films?
All right.
Uh,
The first movie I want to talk about, if my yeah, the first movie I want to talk about is Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry. It's a movie that came out in 1974. One thing we got to appreciate about all these movies is the kind of cars that are in them. They're the kind of cars that make you salivate a little bit when you're sitting there reading the descriptions and looking at all the titles and everything like that. And in this car, we have a 1966 Chevy Impala. We have a 1969 Dodge Charger RT440, and we have a bunch of Dodge Polaras, which are souped up, minor versions of the Charger that are used as police vehicles. That they breakneck speeds and everything else used to catch the bad guys. They do such such a phenomenal job with everything that they do in these movies. But Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry is about these two guys that are NASCAR hopefuls. That's what they want to be. They want to break into the big leagues of NASCAR driving. And this movie starts off with a bang. Larry Ryder and Deke Summers, Larry Ryder being a hopeful driver and Summers being his mechanic. They execute a supermarket heist of $150,000 in cash to basically kickstart their racing. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to rob the supermarket, they're going to make this money, and they're going to get away no problem. And as they're making their escape, Larry gets confronted by a one night stand, which is a character named Mary Combs. This is Crazy Mary, or this is Dirty Mary. That's Crazy Larry, and a literal amount of Blues Brothers car chase shenanigans ensues. I only want to really talk about one scene, and that's they're trying to set up a roadblock on this road. The one police car is. He pulls up right on it. Well, there's a little dirt road off to the side, and Larry goes, "You know what? I'm not going through you. I'm gonna go around you." Goes around the dirt road. As he's shooting down, slows down and lets the cop catch back up to him. So the cop and him are driving down this road, moving around cars, coming up against each other. And the cop's like, "All right, I'm going to take him down. I'm going to end this chase right now." Trying to be the hero. Pushes on the side of the door, pushes on the side of the car. And Mary, sitting in the front seat, is going, "Hey, this guy's knocking on your door." Like nonchalant, this police car is literally trying to run them off the road. And she just, "Oh, he's knocking on your door." And Larry looks over, "Well, I guess I better open it." So Larry takes off to the left and slams in that cop car, and that cop car goes off, hits a bridge, dives down in the water, does about 3 flips on the way down. I mean, this is insane and crazy. And they have a great escape plan to run through this intersection, this intersecting of roads, which is like separate exits for 60 different districts, and they keep shooting off and running, and they're running through cars, and they're trying to get away, and they're doing all this stuff, and they finally get through, and they finally get out, and they've had to stop and steal other cars. They stopped at a gas station, no, at a flea market. They stopped at a flea market and stole the Dodge Charger RT. This was probably some old lady's Dodge Charger, been saving up all her life. These are some bad people, let me tell you, but they are hilarious interacting with each other down the road, and every single thing the cops do completely ineffective. But I got to tell you, I'm not going to spoil any of the ending of the movie, but karma sometimes likes to take matters into their own hands. But this is definitely a movie that is kind of intense and funny from start to finish, and it's just one big car chase. It starts off with a bang, car chase ends with a bang. That's how it goes, and it definitely should be on everybody's list if you really enjoy it. And Peter Fonda does a great job being a relaxed, cool guy who's a little bit off.
Mm-hmm.
So hence the Crazy Larry. So definitely something to check out, and definitely a good car chase movie. Kind of like Bullet. I'm not gonna say as good as Bullet because I don't know if there's ever been a car chase movie or a car chase scene or even a car chase moment as good as Bullet, but definitely right there.
And I may not have given it justice, but Bullet is really an awesome film.
Mm-hmm. So,
As a film, but the car chase is obviously the best part of the
mm-hmm.
movie. It just takes over, and once you have it in your memory, it stays in your memory
Mm-hmm.
for years after years. And I remember seeing that, and every once in a while you'll see a little excerpt of it on television at some point, but just seeing these cars flying through the air like that, man, it's like a roller coaster ride that never ends, and it's just a really a stellar film. Okay, so now I've got another film. Now the critics might not say that was the best acting on the earth, but you got to give it a shot because the themology of the movie is not so bad.
Mm-hmm.
But this movie is called Faster, and it stars Dwayne Johnson, Dwayne the Rock Johnson, and this is a vengeance movie. Um, and what happens to Dwayne Johnson and his brother in this film? They basically are robbers. They steal stuff, and they're making this real big score, and they're trying to, make all this money off of this these drugs and stuff that they've stolen, all this. So somehow they're portrayed, and so for what strange reason, um, Dwayne Johnson and his brother are confronted. Um, their secret place is not secret because somebody said something, somebody told, and so they're confronted by this other crew that's taking their money and taking their drugs. Now, just like anything else, the crew's not wearing masks, so you know if you're not wearing a mask, that means that they're not going to let you live because you've seen them. And so they, for some strange reason, which I still don't understand to this day, they decided to videotape it. This
Uh,
situation.
the one of the guys that's part of the other crew that is attacking the Rock's crew has a snuff film fetish kind of thing going on, which you find out, as the movie's going.
And even still,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't make sense to do this because if anyone finds this film, you're going to get caught.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't matter, obviously. And so they leave The Rock and his brother left for dead. The Rock survives, his brother does not. To not give so much more away of the movie, so when The Rock has the ability to get out of prison, his first thought, his only thought, has ever been to find out everybody who was in that film, everybody who was there that he can remember, and get vengeance for him and his crew and his brother, especially his brother. So he's not out of jail. You know how they say, "Well, you don't want to see you in here." Tom Berenger is the
The
prison
warden.
warden. Thank you, the prison warden. And he's like, you have an opportunity here. I don't want to see you back in here. Kind of speeches and all that. And the Rock's like, okay, good. As soon as he gets out the door, trying to find vengeance right away, even upon the guy who actually gives him the car and the gun, is also a person that he needs vengeance on. And his ideology is he's going to kill every single person that had anything to do with what happened that day. And he's got the vehicle to do it. He's driving a 1970 Chevy Chevelle, which is a kind of a cool looking car. And he doesn't drive it slow, he drives it fast throughout this whole movie. Um, it ends up being a car as a means to an end, a getaway car, and a car that he uses to get away from people chasing him. He's being chased by the police, and somebody, he doesn't know who, has put a hit out on him. So now he's being chased by the police, chased by the an assassin, and also chasing his own demons in order to avenge his brother. So this is called Faster because everything continues fast. It doesn't stop. It's really a non-stop type film. And the people are in this film again are not who they say they are, and they're not who you think they are. And this comes up being a really good movie for him. Now, one of the people chasing him is a detective, or is a police officer, and he's being played by Billy Bob Thornton. And this whole movie is about relentlessness, and because of that relentlessness, this important that he's driving this fast car because he's got to get this stuff done quickly before he gets got. And this movie has a surprise ending. So for me, watching him in this Chevelle and handling this Chevelle is cool, and I've always liked Chevelle since I was a little kid. So it's kind of a cool movie for me to watch it. But the epitome of what it is, the title, Faster, is once he gets in this car, it is nonstop. And getting away from people, time enough to do what he wants to do and still be getting away from people. That's what's cool about the car in this movie.
I really want to say that this is one of my top three favorite movies that's been done by The Rock. thoroughly enjoy it. I'm glad you mentioned relentlessness, because if you didn't, I was certainly going to say that he was relentless. Um, One thing that The Rock himself portrays, and it works so well with the car, with muscle cars in general, you always believe that there is, just like The Rock displays, a certain intensity about the
Hmm.
car, a certain amount of, it gives off a vibe of power.
Right.
And The Rock does this from the start of the movie to the end of the movie,
Hmm.
with everything that happened to him. Um, he has a monstrous intensity that radiates off the screen, and it
Hmm.
really grips you. And even in his moments of humanity, that there is, and there is a few in the movie,
Yep.
um,
Few.
it it really just, you still feel the intensity that's coming off of him even in those moments. And it does a really good job keeping you very interested, because you're just like, this guy could just pop off at any minute, like he could just.
And that's the it. That is it. There's an explosiveness, a control
Mm-hmm,
explosiveness, if you want, you might say, until he gets what he needs to get done.
mm-hmm,
And I think that's the only time where you really see he breathes, and it's just a brief moment that he breathes
mm-hmm.
like, okay, that's done. Next, and he
Yeah.
re-intensifies and goes after the next thing. And
Mm-hmm,
that car is supporting him every step of the way, and that's even cooler in this movie. That's why
mm-hmm,
this is such a cool movie with the car, with this particular car, because as you said, it's a muscle car, and so he's out there intense. It's intense. He's utilizing it, throwing it into gear, shifting
mm-hmm,
it. He's out of there, and then he's evading this person, evading that person, and he gets away and gets to his next agenda, part of his agenda. He never stops. He never
mm-hmm.
wavers from his agenda, no matter what happens to him in the interim. And that's a cool essence about this film. So you're right, Steve. Intensity is a major focus in this film, and it's him handling that car, getting away, trying to get away, just adds to that.
Yeah, it's such a good movie.
It is. It is, and I don't think the critic gave it enough
Mm-mm.
credit. I
Enough
think it's a
love,
lot,
not enough
a
love.
lot. Yes, sir. It's a lot better movie than critics
Mm-hmm.
say. So, okay, see what else you got.
All right, I want to talk about the second highest grossing film in 1977. Everybody talks about Star Wars. Star Wars this, Star Wars that. Star Wars so big, Star Wars so awesome. It is. Let's not try to argue the fact. But I want to talk about Smokey and the Bandit, a movie that, just like Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, has got scenes of just hilarity and awesomeness, and a couple guys and a girl eventually trying to do what they say cannot be done, as the Jerry Reed song goes. Speaking of which, Jerry Reed's in this movie and he drives a truck and has I believe it's a Basset Hound. It's hilarious. They call him Snowman. But there's these two gentlemen in Atlanta, Georgia, for a race, and one of them's named Big Enos Bernadette, and he's got a son with him, Little Enos, and they're seeking a driver because they believe they need some cool refreshments to go along with this race that they're going to watch. And they are trying to bring in Coors, the finest beer at the time, to quench their thirst. But Coors isn't allowed east of the Mississippi at this point in time. So they've been hiring bootleggers, drivers willing to, go across and break the law and bring it in and bring it to them, and every single one of them has been caught, and they've been caught by Smokey. And Smokey is a CB slang for highway patrol officers at that point in time, because they used to wear the Smokey the Bear hats.
Yep.
And then the Big Enos and Little Enos happen to come across a legendary truck driver called Bo Bandit Darville, played by Burt Reynolds, competing at a truck rodeo. And they offer him $80,000 to haul 400 cases of Coors beer from Texarkana, Texas, back to Atlanta in 28 hours, there and back. Uh, Reluctantly, but always looking to make a buck, he decides, you know what? I'll take the bet. and he recruits his partner, which is Cletus Snow, otherwise known as Snowman, played by Jerry Reed. And Bandit's going to drive this beautiful Pontiac Trans Am with the big Firebird on the front of it. Everybody's seen the car, solid black, gold Firebird. The little, what do they call them? T-top. The little T-top roof with the roof kind of comes apart and looks beautiful. And he's going to be what's called a blocker, which means any cops, anything that comes their way, he's going to take their attention away from this truck and let this truck get there. Well, the one little thing that they got going is Bo has built up, or Bandit has built up such a reputation. They got friends all over everywhere when it comes to truck drivers and otherwise. Well, the trip's mostly uneventful going to Texas, except for one Arkansas state trooper that ends up. Well, let's just say he ends up upside down somewhere, and not the last we see of him, but definitely the one of the funniest parts at the very beginning of the movie because he is so outmatched. Well, they pick up their load at Texarkana of beer, and they're on their way back. Well, they happen to just stop on the side of the road, and Bandit sees this bride running away from her wedding, Sally Fields, in this movie known as Carrie. And he picks her up, and he's like, oh, starts nicknaming her Frog. You're a good-looking girl. Kind of like a frog. You're kind of cute that way. Which most people would find insulting, but it's a little sarcastic, I guess, is the word I'm looking for. That's not the word. Oh well. But then he becomes the target of the man the man she was supposed to marry's father, Sheriff Buford T. Justice, played by Jackie Gleason. And let me tell you, this is where the movie gets absolutely hilarious. Justice goes through every single trouble that you could possibly go to, even threatens to barbecue Bandit and molasses. He's so upset and pissed off with him. I'm not going to tell you how the movie ends, but I feel like you got a general idea. And if you're a car lover or a car person, you've seen this movie, and you know how this ends, and you know it's funny from start to finish. Burt Reynolds does an amazing job playing the person he is supposed to be, which is quick-witted, nonchalant, able to get the job done. He's been around the block 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and it's just amazing cast-wise. The acting is phenomenal. I mean, there's a reason it's right behind Star Wars. And I mean, in the 70s, it's one of the movies that is still up tier for the whole, decade. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely an amazing car movie, and it's quirky, it's funny. The chases are amazing. The crashes are over the top, exactly like you want them to be. And Jackie Gleason does an amazing job. We're playing Buford T. Justice, and just comedic genius all around.
Oh yeah, and part of that comedic genius, like you said, really is Burt Reynolds. Mm-hmm. Prior to this movie, and I'm not saying every movie, but prior to this movie, a lot of the movies that Burt Reynolds was involved in were very dramatic, type movies and thrillers, and even some crazy, for lack of a better way of saying it, criminal movies where he was a criminal. A lot of the movies, and even he had a TV show prior to this, where he was a detective on television. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's had really intense roles. What's the movie with John Voight? And they're, oh my goodness, the guy plays the banjo. Deliverance.
Yeah.
Yes, and as intense as Burt Reynolds was in that movie, is how comedically funny he is in this one. Burt Reynolds is he's I guess it's the essence of a truly good actor, where he can flip the script from being so dramatic and so tough into being so funny and still being kind of tough, but really funny.
Yeah.
In this film, and so kudos to him in that. having that ability, and he was. I think he's an actor that really didn't get a lot of acclaim. Good enough for directors and uh, uh, filmmakers to put him in the films, but still, I think he was a lot better actor than people gave him credit.
Well, you
Uh,
know, I feel like he's definitely an actor that when audiences see his name pop up, not necessarily critics or anything like that, but when audiences see his name pop up, they go, "All right, this is going to be good."
yeah,
That no matter what goes on with the movie, the acting is going to be good because it's got Burt Reynolds.
right. And there's a lot of actors out there that have that ability,
Mm-hmm.
but nowhere near as many movies as these actors who have that ability can even be in. And yeah, he's one of those people that, like you said, pretty much you hear his name, you're going to at least pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's cool. Well, to move this along a little bit, I'm going to give you my last film. And maybe we can also mention some, secondary films other than the ones we're mentioning. And again, ladies and gentlemen, these are the films that we really think you should watch and take the opportunity to view and get even give us your opinion about it. But the next film that I have is a film that came out in I think it was 1971 when this film came out, and it was based off of true occurrences. This is one of those films where um, art imitates life, in the sense that this truly happened. The movie I'm referring to is called The French Connection. The French Connection is an account about cops dealing with narcotics, but on an international scale. And that international scale ends up interfering with the United States by um, getting the narcotics coming through New York City and the New York City Police Department. So this movie stars Gene Hackman, Fernando Rey, Roy Schneider, Tony LeBlanc, Bianco, and just to name a few. So basically, there are two detectives in New York who are trying to deal with narcotics on their streets and trying to figure out where all this narcotics is coming from, and they pretty much fall into a situation where this is an international narcotics ring. And the reason why all this narcotics is getting there without them knowing it early on is because it's coming from an outside source that they weren't aware of. So they become aware of it, and so that entails the essence of the film. Um, and as I said, you have real life detectives here. In the movie, Popeye Doyle, Jimmy Popeye Doyle, is played by uh, uh, Gene Hackman, and his partner, Buddy Cloudy Russo, is played by Roy Schneider. Now, just to give you an essence of how well received this movie was, this movie won the Academy Award that year. It was also nominated for Best Actor for Gene Hackman, and he won the Academy for Best Actor. And Roy Schneider was also nominated as supporting actor. So, and this movie also won for best screenplay. So we're talking about a film that had a lot of moxie, we'll say, a lot of girth, a lot of strength in the character of the film, the actors in the film, their portrayal of these true life people, and uh, and how well it was received by the Academy as well as people during that time. But this is one of those films, again, that has one of the best chase scenes in American history, also. You know, and through the streets of New York, no doubt. Um, Now, obviously, not as hilly as San Francisco, but we're talking about major traffic, right? New York is like wall to wall people. It always has been. And you're talking about trying to chase somebody down in the streets of New York and traveling fast and not avoiding killing other people in your wake. That's what's going on in this movie. There's a chase scene between the police detective and a hitman, again, someone who's out to try to kill the police. And the chase ensues because this hitman is trying to kill um, Popeye Doyle, and he misses. But that means Popeye's after you, and so now this detective is out to try to chase down this assassin, and yet the assassin is like, okay, it's the chase, but he's gonna also still try to kill this guy in the midst of this chase. This is crazy. Um, and then the chase goes from the streets and the cars into the subway system. So this chase scene is not just in cars; it's on foot. So, but the essence of this car chase and the twists and turns and the near misses just makes your head spin. And so this is indeed in the car again playing that character that didn't get nominated for the Academy Award, but yet still ensues being such a big part of this film. And you know, as cool as New York is, there's just no room for chase scenes in the sense of in your mind because there's just no room. But yet, this chase scene goes on and the near misses, and I mean it's just amazing chase scene in this film as well. So you got to see it. You got to take the opportunity to see it, especially if for no other reason. This is a biopic, which means a lot of this, and there might be some ambiguity, but a lot of this stuff really happened. And so it's really interesting to see how this unfolds as you're watching this film. I'm not going to give a whole bunch away, but uh, this is a pretty intense film. And when you see it, you realize that how these detectives in New York and these police officers who are, overall, especially in our day and time, getting a bum rap for the most part. But then you understand even more when you see the inside of what's going on here in this film and get a better understanding of what they have to go up against. Not saying that everything that they did tactic wise was perfect or even sometimes very good, but with what they're going up against, with the amount of ability that they have as a police department, you have a little bit more respect for what they do and understand the hardships that they go through in order to get these things done. But again, really great car scene in this film too. Um, so that's me in a nutshell, real quick. Academy Award winning film, screenplay, actors, and the character that didn't get its Academy Award is the chase scene. All right, you're up next, Steve. What you got?
All right, I'm going to talk about the 2014 movie Need for Speed. It's starring Michael Keaton and Aaron Paul, which I talked about earlier. But to jump right in it, Aaron Paul plays this character named Toby Marshall, who runs his late father's performance garage, which they tune up cars for friends and for other people, but they're really struggling to make ends meet. Well, at night they often go out and have street races, and upon winning the street race that night, Toby gets approached by a former rival who's made his way up to the big leagues and has earned the big bucks, and kind of looks down at people. But he comes up to him and has a job offer for him, and Toby really doesn't want to take it. But with the offer that he makes, and the car that they're working on, it becomes something he can't refuse. Well, it's actually this is after Carol Shelby had died. Was for this part of the premise for this part of the movie. It's the Shelby GT 500 Mustang that was actually personally worked on by Carol Shelby, who of course is all God when it comes to Mustangs and Cobras and all of that stuff. And he said in exchange for them fixing it, for them making it right, for them making it one of the best cars and finishing what he started, he was going to give him 25% of the estimated selling price, which was $2 million.
Hmm.
They complete the Mustang, get it ready for display. Then Toby and Dino end up meeting, which Dino's the guy that offered him the job and everything. End up meeting Julia, which is an English car broker. She's a funny, quick-witted, strong-willed female in this movie that even though it seems like, oh, just because I'm a girl, you think I can't understand something, or you think I can't do something, and she plays the part very well. And her client, Bill Ingram, who wants to purchase the car, is like, they drive it, they do everything with it. It looks amazing. Um, uh, then he's like, "Well, how much is it going to cost?" "Well, it's going to be 2 million." He goes, "Well, I know that's the price, but I don't know if that's really the price." And then Toby makes a claim that this car is not a 200 mile per hour car. This car is a 230 mile per hour car. So he takes a bet and says, "You know what? If you can get it to go 230, I'll buy the car right now." Well, he goes out there and he runs 234 around that racetrack, comes back all excited, amped. Ingram buys the car, ends up putting a little bit more on it for 2.7 million. But Dino's really upset that Toby kind of took over his deal and kind of, brushed him off to the side. So he says, "Hey, you're this big shot racer. You think you can beat me? You think you can show me up? Why don't you come with me and we'll have a race?" So Toby and his friend Pete, which Pete is kind of Toby's sidekick, they have the race. This is where the movie really gets going. A wreck ensues after Dino realizes he's not going to beat Toby in this street race. And Toby basically wrecks Pete. Pete flies off the edge and ends up getting in the wreck. And Toby goes to jail for it because Dino skates off.
Mm.
Because they are driving, I'm probably going to be butchering this name, a Keone Sieg Agera, which are three illegally imported cars that are not even supposed to be in the country. As a matter of fact, for movie's sake, only 4 of them exist in the entire world. These are high dollar, high end cars. Well, Toby goes to prison, ends up claiming Dino was there. Nobody believes him because there's no evidence of him being there.
Mm-hmm.
The car doesn't exist that supposedly Dino was driving and all this. So upon parole, Toby's gonna get revenge. Toby's gonna get back at Dino. So he calls Ingram, the guy who bought the Mustang, and promises him that with that Mustang he can win an underground race called the De Leon, in which the winner of the race not only wins money, wins all the cars.
Mm.
Every single souped up, high powered car in this race. But Ingram makes one decision and he says, "Julia's got to come with you." So we got Paul and Julia taking this cross country from New York to San Francisco in 45 hours. Stopping off at Detroit as well as the Salt Flats and among other places. His crew consists of 2 guys that are basic mechanics that help with the work and the upkeep and trying to help fix the car and things like that. And another guy, I cannot remember his name. I can't remember his name for the life of me. He's one of the best parts of the entire movie. He's laid back. He's cool. He wants to be called Maverick at one point in the movie, but he's his eye in the sky. This guy drives a helicopter. This guy drives a plane. This guy, he does a little bit of everything, and he knows just the right people to get everything going. Well, Dino, hearing about Toby trying to make this run, ends up putting his Lamborghini on the line to anyone who can stop Toby from making it to the De Leon.
Wow.
And Michael Keaton in this plays Maverick, plays Monarch, which is the guy that sets up the De Leon, which used to be a car guy, used to be a racer, has kind of had accidents happen or anything, and he always sets up this underground race, and nobody knows who he is, truly. It's all just myths and legends, kind of like a Wolfman Jack of the radio.
Gotcha.
Except for cars. And so then it's just a high speed, everything you expect from Need for Speed, cops pursuits, jumping over streets, go insane speeds, doing crazy stuff, running from cops, making weird, crazy things happen. And there's a little bit of an extra romance added to the movie too, but it's really about the cars. And it really is a true extension of everyone involved in the vehicles that they are on. And it's critics did not give this movie all the justice that it deserved, and it truly is a very well done movie, and it's well worth the watch. It does a great job showcasing Aaron Paul. I mean, I'm not gonna say the acting is French Connection good, but or Bullet good, but it's definitely it definitely does a good job with everybody involved, and it really pulls you in and keeps you from start to finish.
Sounds like a good movie. I think I have never seen that one, so I think I'll take an opportunity to do
It's
that.
definitely worth
Also,
the look.
I am definitely going to do that. So let's talk about a few other movies real quick. Um, Another good movie out there is Vanishing Point. Came out in
Hmm.
1971. That's a good one. More
There's two
recent.
of them.
Oh, is it?
There's one in 1971, and then there's one I believe starring Viggo Mortensen, which was in 1997,
Okay, I
a
haven't
remake
seen
of the
that.
movie. I mean, it's crazy. It's almost a shot for shot.
Well, I'm gonna watch it because I'm a big fan of Viggo Mortensen. So
Hmm.
another one, real quickly, is with Nicholas Cage is Gone in 60 Seconds.
Hmm.
Another good one. Obviously, the Fast and Furious, as we mentioned before. And if you're into comedy, Cannonball Run is another
Oh, so
funny
good.
and quirky movie. A movie that's more about Japanese Bushido, which is Ronin. But this came out in 1998. Um, and this movie is Robert De Niro, actually, in this film. And another good movie out there, which you kind of alluded to earlier, Steve, which I was surprised you didn't mention, with with really some really good car chase scenes, and that's the Blues Brothers themselves in 1980. That's another good one.
Um,
Uh,
I want to mention if you're into a little carnage, you can always watch Death Race with Jason Statham. It's got its fair share of the car race and the craziness, and you know prisoners driving souped up cars that are looking to just ruin everybody's day. It's real good. Also, a period piece throwback kind of movie, Two Lane Blacktop. It's a very good movie. I can't think of who stars in it right now, but it's definitely one of those you're gonna want to sit through. And if you love those period pieces of that style of guys driving from racetrack to racetrack, drag racing and things like that, it's definitely really good. Like you said, the Blues Brothers, The Italian Job
well,
is
I was
another
going to
good
mention
one.
Italian Job because that's a good one because
Hmm.
there's two versions of that. The original one was 1969, and then we also have the one with Mark Wahlberg, the more
Hmm.
recent one, Mark Wahlberg, and what is her name?
Edward Norton is also in that one.
Oh, Edward Norton is a great in that movie. And then also Charlize Theron is also in that film. But you mentioned Jason Statham. The Transporter is another movie where there's a
Hmm.
really good driving of cars and car chases, and that away from the police. Days of Thunder is another great car movie. Um, a movie that didn't get a lot of pub, but it's a decent film. Rush, which is came out in 2013. Um, what else? Even Mad Max. We're talking about car scene chase scenes.
Oh my God.
All these crazy contraptions in that film, and it's
Mad
nothing but
Max,
a
Fury
chase scene from the.
Road.
Yeah, it's just a chase scene from start to finish, pretty much,
Hmm.
for the most part. Um, what's another good one? Oh, Cars. If you
Yeah.
like animated films, 2006. Um, Drive, which is kind of a quirky film, which came out in what that was really recent. That was like 2011.
Yeah, something like
Um,
that.
yeah, and that's kind of that Baby Driver precursor, we'll
Yeah.
say. And then another film, if you like fun and giddy silliness, is Talladega Nights,
Hmm.
2006. So there is a myriad of films out here that cars are a big deal. And an interesting movie, which is really not a movie about speed and car chases, but a car movie nevertheless. It's a 1988 movie that came out, which I was kind of came across it by accident. It's kind of a melodrama, really, because it's based. Some of it is based off of real life character, and this is a Francis Ford Coppola movie um, that it's called Tucker, the Man in His Dream,
Uh-huh.
and it starts off as in a bicycle shop and ends up being one of the best cars ever made kind of film. So another really good film regarding in dealing with cars. Um, well, that's just a few that I had.
Oh, I want to
What about
mention.
you,
I want to
Steve? Go ahead.
mention one more movie.
Sure.
I'm going to mention one more movie, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it because I love this movie. 1968, The Love Bug.
Yes, sir. The Love Bug. Yep. And going to what's that Disney, right?
Yep.
Uh, yeah. So there's a lot of wonderful films out there that have cars in it that deal with cars specifically, where cars are the savior, where cars are the villain out there for us all to see in its wonderment. So please take a gander at the car movies that we talked about earlier and throughout our show tonight. And then also try to take part in some of the car movies that we mentioned and review this particular episode of A Real Point of View and just to get the titles again of some of these really great films. We hope you enjoyed our show today. We hope we were able to give you some insight in some films that we thought were important with regard to the genre of cars as well as great acted films with really wonderful actors and actresses, and some films that have a little weight to them, a little girth to them, that are special and that we really think you should watch. So, as for me, I want to thank you for again hanging out with us here at A Real Point of View. Check out some of our archive episodes at our YouTube channel, which is also A Real Point of View. And anything else, Steve, before we get out of here?
Nope. Go support your local movies. If you hadn't seen it yet, go see Black Panther.
Yep.
It's a phenomenal film.
And if you have the opportunity, in 3D IMAX, even better. 2D is still good, but 3D IMAX, that was stellar. It was an enjoyable film, and I hope that you enjoy any Marvel initiated films out there. And we've got some more Marvel films coming up real soon, so be watchful for those films. So thanks again from me and Steve here on Real Point of View. Have a wonderful night and enjoy your movies.
Peace.
Peace. We're out of here.